Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Welcome to sixth night of this Transcending Work, Harnessing the Courage to Lead. And tonight, we're here with Dr. Nicole Tschierske, a scientist and positive psychology coach who helps women in science and tech use their head and heart to get seen and noticed in their company. She's an experienced change manager and coach, and we are going to be talking to her about her experiences and learning along the change journey. So welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Catherine. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So you are a food chemist. How does a food chemist find her way into people and change?
Yeah, it takes a crisis. So I was working in product innovation as my first job, or the first years of my career in the industry. And then as it is within those big companies, sometimes there's a merger, and then it takes quite a while to kind of like reorganize and resettle things. So how that affected me, so that was change, experiencing change or the impact of it firsthand, and how that affected me was really ending up or being put on hold for quite a few months, and I had hardly anything to do because they were sorting out things and discussing and trying to agree on how to move forward. And I like working.
Yeah.
So not working was really, really horrible. And so that led me to seek out a coach to help me get out of this energy slump. And then within a few sessions, he had me all going up again and pursuing new pathways and so on. And I was like, how did you do this? I want to be able to do that too for people. And that's when I then started coaching training and get into all this kind of space. And then, as luck would have it, the opportunity arose within the company to lead the change management work stream for a big business transformation project. And I was like, man, I have this newfound passion, kind of. There's an opportunity. I know the team is great. And so I jumped right in.
Wow, that's amazing. And how have you transitioned this change management work in this time of remote working? How has that worked for you?
So basically, I started in the role before COVID happened. So there was still a lot of, there was a lot of traveling involved, going places, meeting people, doing trainings in person, having those types of conversation and this engagement and working with the team, in meeting rooms and all that. So the way you would think about project work. And then, and then we couldn't travel anymore. And what has changed is really, let's just say, the level of intention needs to be a different one. So really, what are we doing? So being really more focused and prepared, being mindful also of what's going on and being mindful of what we don't see that's going on. So there's a lot more checking in. So I mean, the mechanics of it is fairly simple. You just sit on the same chair every day and dial into different types of meetings, but the intentionality needs to be different. But I'm happy to report that the team found a way of working, and probably having become so cohesive beforehand through all this great collaboration, but this really took it up a notch. So we really stood even closer together, and we're just really very intentional and conscious about how we interact and how we run the project in different phases. So, and it worked out fine so far.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. And what skills do you consider to be the most important for employees in large organizations, given what's happened with COVID, given, the kind of inflection point that we're in right now? What skills do you think are the most important that people should be focusing on now?
Yeah, so 3 things for me, and there are no particular order. I find them all equally important. So one is learning, and learning not just in the sense of taking part in a training or reading a manual or a textbook, these kind of things, but actually learning from life and from what's happening. And not just every half a year when you do a lessons learned or a review or something, but on the go, having these like heartbeat retrospectives every week, asking yourself what's working well, what are we going to change, and then really, learning on the fly, so to speak. So that's one. And by that, then also always being able to get ready for what's next, because you notice this, and this kind of prepares you for change properly then.
Yeah.
The second one is emotional intelligence. And I know it's sometimes a big buzzword, but really knowing how to stick with data, not drama. And just knowing how to, navigate uncertainty, taking a step forward and taking decisions, even though everything is volatile and ambiguous, if we want to take those words, in, but there's like, it is just a reality, and you need to learn how to cope with this. Not only how to cope with it, but how to still excel in those type of environments and make progress. And so that's emotional intelligence. And the third one is really relational intelligence. So building relationships, connecting with people, and having those, even now that we are missing this kind of like being in one room, having like this, like almost feeling the social fabric, but now we have to put so much more effort into creating our relationships and maintaining them, because that is what's needed to really be effective and get anything done.
Yeah, I think you've raised three very interesting points. And on the point about learning, I mean, there's an element of experiential learning, I guess, that we need to bring out. But how would you recommend people get into that experiential learning? Because, if I think back, maybe some of the ways that people did this in the past would be to take a gap year, for example. So before you even get into the job, you take a gap year, you tour the world, and you experience different cultures. And that already gives you something new, right? Something experiential. How would you recommend people go about bringing an experiential element into their learning journeys?
So, I mean, one thing is learning from the things that you do every day. Yes. So something that I established with, let's say you implemented a change, and then you still need this ramp up phase and stabilize it, and really embed it in the ways of working. And so what I then do with those teams that just went through this kind of like go live implementation phase, to really have a monthly kind of learning loop session where we just have this pause and just reflect on, okay, what's really going on? What have we achieved in the past months? What are the gaps that we're having? So being intentional about learning from the experiences that I make every day in my job. But then what you mentioned for, maybe creating other experiences for ourselves, I'm pretty sure there are a lot more, projects going on in everybody's company than the ones that touch your own role. And so maybe there's an opportunity for you there to volunteer, maybe there's a kind of like environmental working group or diversity and inclusion working group or whatever, and so, or just, people create stuff all of the time. So you can find those types of projects that are outside of your role where you can engage.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move to another question. I love all the 3 points, but probably we're going to run out of time if I focus on them all. But what are your best 3 tips for approaching a transformation? So getting into big scale transformations, what are your best 3 tips?
Yeah, so this is really more from, I thought a lot about this because you were kind enough to send a question to me up front. And actually thinking about this is not so much, the how and the strategy, but really how you set yourself up. So one thing is, from a company perspective, allowing the resources to take care of the change management. And having a dedicated change manager, very good. It's a very perfect point to start. So now you have someone who can orchestrate the whole people side of change. But having just one person managing change for 500, 1,000 people that are impacted is just not sufficient. So all of your project team members, all of your subject matter experts, all of your line leaders, they all need to play a role within change. And for those that are heavily involved in driving the project forward, I think at least 20% allowing for them to spend on really just engaging and taking the rest of the organization with them would be a good place to start. So that is one thing. So allowing the resources. The second bit is really integrating change management and project management. You may have two different people doing this, but the activities and the tasks, they need to be in one plan. You cannot have one plan here and the other plan here, but they should be combined in one, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the third point really is increasing your organization's capacity for change. So really upskilling people, both leaders and frontline employees, to know how to go through change successfully and how to implement it. Because, when you ask something of someone, then I'm always a fan of giving them the tools to be able to meet those requirements.
Absolutely. Really good points. And thank you for that. Can you talk about your bigger vision for women in tech? So I know this is an area of passion for you, and you've transcended tech and you've taken your skills to another level in terms of that organization playing field that you have now. Tell me about your vision for women.
Yeah, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say it's my vision for everyone who is an employee or who works for a living. I work mainly with women in the STEM fields because I can relate most to them because it's my own background and our brains are sort of wired in the same way. But really my vision for workplaces in general is that just people can thrive and have an opportunity to, be their best at work and really enjoy going there every day. Because I don't know how you feel, but if we have to work over 4 decades, it's like we better have some fun doing it. And so that's really important for me. And then creating those environments, showing people how to really step up and be there and seize opportunities, but also providing those opportunities equally for everyone. This is just, I would love to see things going that way.
I agree with you. I mean, this is one of the reasons the show is called the way it's called, right? This idea of transcending work is something that I've fallen in love with simply because it no longer means work, right? So if you want to bring yourself to doing something that aligns to your purpose, that you feel a more intrinsic joy from rather than the extrinsic rewards that you get, this for me means so much. Yeah. And we have a comment from Joe. Change management is often seen as the nice to have on projects. What's your approach to companies that take this view? How do you get them on board and see the benefit of proper change management as part of transformation? Excellent question, Joe.
Yeah. So, Catherine, I know you have an opinion on this as well. So, would you like me to go first? Or
Go first.
Yeah. Okay. So when you speak to companies about this, it's like really always thinking, they think about finance. So I always bring it back to change management can really help you, given that the technical solution you provide is the same proper quality, but change management can really help you increase that return on investment or even get this return on investment, because you need, no perfect system or great process will do you any good if there's no people there who are willing to use it and use it in the way it was intended. And so that is one thing, maximizing return on investment. And the other bit is really minimizing the disruption to the business during the transition phase. So because change creates upheaval wherever you go, things won't go as smoothly as before, and that's natural and that's normal. But how can you then accompany and enable the organization to go through this so it doesn't have customer impact?
Yes, I agree. I would probably add that the pace of change now is no longer human scale, right? So it's accelerated beyond our ability to cope naturally with it. And therefore, this is why you need that extra support, right? You need to bring people along in the journey. And, you know, they say that most people are actually aversive to change, right? They don't want to step into change. And now we are accelerating so many things. I mean, the shift to remote work was supposed to happen 3 years from now, right? You know, and we all got pushed into it while being pushed out of, you know, walking on the streets and having things that are normal. So you really need to hold people's hands through this journey. So this is part of the process, and without it, you don't have an engaged workforce. And what you really want, you know, it's to the point we spoke about before. What you really want is people bought in to a greater journey, a greater, bigger picture.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I will go through one more question with you. So what advice would you have for people who've been recently made redundant, for example, because a lot of things are happening. We have entire industries that are impacted by the crisis that we're going through, as well as, you know, people whose jobs are changing even outside of those industries. What advice would you give to them in searching for new opportunities?
Yeah. So once you recovered from the initial shock, or at least a little bit, I would say, again, data, not drama. So I would first go to my finances and see, what kind of standard of living can I sustain and for how long, before I immediately fall into kind of panicky mode. And so this would be like the basis for then creating a game plan. If I know it's like my buffer serves me for 2 or 3 months, then I would have to consider like, okay, just getting any job, maybe, just so long as, or I know I can live off unemployment benefits from the state or such, you know, but like really having that calculation before I can even start thinking about making another plan. And then it's really about thinking, okay, what adjustments do I have to make to my standard of living? What other things do I need to get in place in order to properly sustain myself and have my basic needs met? And then from there, I don't know, especially when you're younger, maybe you have the opportunity to move back in with your parents to really cut your living expenses. I mean, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And then the other bit I would do is I would see how, you know, where can I get help? And I would really get help from the professionals. And I have no doubt that everyone is really great at their job, but this is a skill that you have honed for the past years. And a skill that you haven't honed is writing a resume and a cover letter, going through a job interview. It's like, I don't know, if you've been working in a company for the last 8 or 10 years, like things have changed on the job market. Things work differently now. And so I would immediately try and go, and I mean, LinkedIn is the perfect place to be. There are so many great people to help you, you know, it's like with your job search strategy, with resume writing, with interview prep, with all of these kind of things, and how to even engage on LinkedIn, how to work with recruiters. So I'm not an expert in this, but I can, if that's okay with you, is like after the live, I can go tag a few people that are experts in this. So anyone who wants to know, then just, you know, contact those people, follow them. They're all putting out great content. You might even want to invest in one of their services, because it's like, I wouldn't trust myself to, you know, be able to really hit it out of the park all on my own, because I've never, it's like in the past years, I've never even thought 1 second about how to do this.
It's interesting because I know that people feel fear just by even thinking about having to do that, right? So, and I think a lot of the reason people don't make changes or don't rotate as often is because of that fear, right? So it's very real. It's very real. So, you know, as we all bite our nails looking at the US elections, I had to mention it because I think it's been on everybody's mind. I think what are your kind of hopes for a new beginning in 2021? Difficult question.
Oh man, 2021. Well, I think we all had a really great reality check this year with like, this year is like, it feels like it's so much has happened. It could fill a decade, with
Yes.
like the bushfires in Australia at the beginning, then somehow, COVID hit. Then there was all of the racial injustice topics in the US and all over the world. Then we have all of the crazy election, and I'm not even talking about the US, but also Belarus and so on. It's like there are many things happening all over the world, and it's just looking around and it's like, man, this is a real reality check. And I hope for many of us a wake-up call to pay attention to how we treat each other, how we treat our planets, and to make not a small New Year's resolutions, but actually starting to change the way we live and how we conduct ourselves on this planet, to create a world that's really, that can sustain peaceful living for everyone.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for your generous sharing. And thanks for joining the show.
No, thanks for inviting me, Kevin. I always love talking to you. So.
All right. See you all next week. Take care.